forgetting our mishigas from the week and just enjoying being together in the room, breathing in together, and getting ready to all be in the same place spiritually, emotionally, and physically, if possible. This is a nigun, a wordless prayer from Modetz. Please join me. I'll be doing lots of repeats, so you can join me. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. Yai bye 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 bye. How good and how pleasant it is to be together, whether you are in this room, whether you are watching on from the comfort of your home on YouTube. Please join us in Hine Ma Tov. It's on page 128 in the Mishkan Tefillah prayer book. And we will do a nice Israeli melody. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya la 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 la. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya la 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 la. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, ya la 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 la. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Oh, I love seeing all the smiles on these faces this evening. According to Talmud, Psalm 92, Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, was sung by the Levites in the ancient temple. It refers to our longing that every day should be filled with the peace, holiness, and rest of Shabbat. So let us meditate on the peace of this holy day. Upon now we enter. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, page 140 in your prayer book. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון. Shabbat is a time of rest, but it is also a time of being thankful and mindful of all the miracles that have had to come together to create the life that we are living in this moment. We remember our ancestors, our parents with love, the circumstances that brought us into this room, and we fill our hearts with joy. L'chuna ranona Adonai, let us sing joyously to God. Please turn back to page 130. These prayers are in whatever order they are in. And we're going to have a little fun with this one, because after all, we are shouting for our rock and our Redeemer. So, L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, Naria litzo yishenu. L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, Naria litzo yishenu. Nikadma panav v'toda, bizmirot navriano. Don't make me sound like a fool, you gotta come sing it with me. L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, Naria litzo yishenu. L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, Naria litzo yishenu. Nikadma panav v'toda, bizmirot navriano. Try one more time. L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, Naria litzo yishenu. L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, right, now we're feeling Shabbat in all its forms. I'd like to call on the Katz family to light the Shabbat candles. Barbara and Rebecca and Claire, you want to come too with Naomi? Come on up, watch your step. The blessings can be found on page 120. Right there. Not my baby. Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lechadlikner shel Shabbat. Amen. Beautiful job. It's a good step. I'll bring things this way. You did a beautiful job. When I keep Shabbat, God watches over me. It is a sign forever between God and me. Page 129 toward the bottom. Ki eshmera Shabbat. Ki eshmera Shabbat. Yishmereni. Ki eshmera Shabbat. Yishmereni. Oti leomead beino veni. Oti leomead beino veni. Ki eshmera Shabbat. Yishmereni. Ki eshmera Shabbat. Yishmereni. Odi leomead beino veni. Odi leomead beino veni. As we've welcomed Shabbat, we've welcomed our friends together, and now we welcome the angels to join us. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitrem Shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now, one more special guest that we welcome, very, very special guest that we welcome on Shabbat. Lecha Dodi is our wedding song. It is, we learn from the mystics of Sfat in the 16th century that we receive a second soul on Shabbat. We are Shekhinah, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down to us as the sun sets in the west, and we receive Shabbat as a bride. Boi kala, boi kala. If you've ever wondered why we stand up and face the door, that's why. When a bride comes in the room at a wedding, you don't just sit there and you read the final verse. You stand up and you face the bride, and you welcome her and you bow to her and boi kala, as she enters the room. So we will do verses 1, 2, 8, and 9, which can be found on pages 138 and 139. And when we get to verse 9, please rise, or I'll give you a signal if you get lost, and face the door and welcome her in. Lecha Dodi likrat galai, yalanai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat galai, yalanai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmianu Elcham Yochad, Adonai Echad U'Shmo Echad, L'Shem U'Tiferet V'Liteilah. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tehila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalanai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalanai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Verse 8. Yamin u'smoti v'rotzi, v'yad Adonai taritzi, ayadish ben batzi, v'nesmecha v'nagila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 B'nai Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi remain standing. You're welcome. As we transition to the central prayers of our service, the Baruch Hu, we do that with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144. Yitkada v'yitkada shmei Rabba B'yama divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayedecho beit Yisrael B'gala b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imeru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Le'olmei Olmaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitbar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shemei Dekodesha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damira be'alma v'imeru Amen. And we turn to page 146 for the Baruch Hu, our call to prayer. I will do the call facing east if you will do the answer the following line. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amvorach Baruch Adonai Amvorach Baruch Adonai Amvorach Le'olam va'ed. You may be seated. Turning to page 148 is a blessing for the evening. We acknowledge God as our creator who creates day and night, rolling night away, or day away into night and night back into day. And we trust when we go to bed at night that when we wake up, the sun will come up. And we acknowledge our Creator with this prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher bidbaro mariv aravim b'chokhma poteach sheharim uvidvuna mishaneh itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kertzono Yom v'layla Borei Lord mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or v'choshech mipnei or Umavir yom umevi layla Umavdir ben yom uvelayla Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam Tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Ha'ma'arim v'aravim. Turning to page 150. We acknowledge the everlasting love, unconditional love that we are granted in partnership with God. No matter what we do, no matter how we feel, our love can be from God can be counted upon. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha avta, Amcha avta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu, uv'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki chem chayenu, yorech yameinu, uvahem nege yom v'layla, nege yom v'layla. Be'avatcha tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. And together we return that love as one. In this reciting of Shema, page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hashem kevod malchuto le'olam va'ed. We continue with the first and last paragraphs of the Shema on page 154. We will do them in Hebrew, followed by English at the bottom of the page. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol vavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha ayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech u'shachbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam lehot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי הייתם קדושים לרעכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם. And in English, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take these instructions with which I charge you this day, impress them upon your children, recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. And now we sing our song of liberation, of freedom. Before we do that, I'm going to do a slightly varied version of the reading on page 159. Sing the song of all the people, men, women, non-binary, trans, people of all abilities, race, religion, and color, joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Adonai et Yaakov, U'yalom yad chazak mimanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gai Yisrael. Page 160, 161. This is a prayer we ask for peace and protection. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, Leshalom, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. People of Israel shall keep Shabbat as a covenant for all time. This is the agreement we made at Mount Sinai, and we remember it every Shabbat. Page 162. Veshameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. We rise for the standing prayers. Be found on page 164 with our invocation. We do, in our congregation, we do these prayers silently. It's our custom. I invite you to embody this prayer, these prayers, either whether you read these or these words in these pages, or whether you decide to go into your own and have your own one-on-one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's your choice. But I invite you to embody approaching the Holy One of Blessing as the greatness that they are, by taking 3 steps back as we say the invocation. So you can take 3 steps forward and then take the bow as we begin our prayer. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agiti latecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. טסים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, טסים לעולם. כי אתה מלך אדון לכל השלום. לי אתה מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב ישראל עמך, טסים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, טסים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בכתומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך, טסים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, טסים לעולם. טסים לעולם. טסים We add to these blessings, both spoken aloud and spoken in our hearts, a prayer for healing. It is our custom to read the names of those in our congregation in need of healing prayers, and then I will pass my hand around the room. And by mentioning names of people that you are praying for a complete healing, just by saying those names, it just gives that a little bit extra inertia to float those names up to the attention of the Holy One of blessing, that they would receive this blessing. So in our congregation this week, we are praying for Helen Steger Avera, Edna Hutcherson, Jerome Komisar, Jennifer Nielsen, Charlie Scharfman, Chaya Sara Bat Etka, Hannah Bat Joya, Svi Hanft, Carolyn Troianu, Robert Ray, Orly Chava Bat Sarah, James Beardsley, Marilee Newman, Sarah Murray, Diane Rothberg, Pesach Ben Liba Tzvi, Jay Krasner, Bill Tucker, Stephen Keese, and any whose names you wish to add at this time. Hayden Pierce. Misha Barach can be found on page 109 in your prayer book. Misha Barach Avotenu Bekor Abraha Limotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before put our books aside for just a few moments. As I share some thoughts with you on the first portion, Torah portion of the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim. So, as I said, this week's parsha is Devarim, and we read the first parsha in this book. It is the 11th month of the 40th year of wandering in the wilderness. It is almost at an end, and we are at the shores of the Jordan, about to enter Canaan. It is time for Moses' goodbye, since he won't be going with the people into the promised land. This is a short parsha, and there's nothing really new here. We've heard it all before, or almost all of it. So what's left for me to say? Just a little. It concerns the nature of history, as explained in the thinking of one of our greatest Jewish philosophers, Maimonides, as seen in the personal story of an insignificant Polish flour merchant named Nehemiah. First, we go back to the name of this book. While the Hebrew name Devarim means words, the Greek-based Deuteronomy carries the meaning of repetition or second telling. There's another word for this. It's called history. Devarim, the book, transcends time, or more accurately, covers all of time. Moses' first address, which we discussed, recapitulates what has happened. His second speech discusses the operative religious and judicial laws of their society. And the third speech is an admonishment of the rewards and punishments to which the people will be subjected depending on their actions. In other words, this book discusses the past, the present, and the future of the Jewish people. The importance of history in this story is obvious. It is what happened, and without it, Moses could not carry out his mission. How often is the basis of his censure of the people the fact that they should have known better? The failure of the people to trust God would have been bad in any case, but they had already experienced God's beneficence firsthand. I've never liked that terrible cliche that those that cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But the history of that generation of Israel certainly shows that those who fail to learn from the past are condemned to a very long walk. This whole story is the history not simply of the Jewish people, but specifically of that people's experience with God. Our history is the evidence of God's presence in human affairs. As Moses pointed out in vain, the people didn't need to accept God's word on pure faith. They had already seen God's goodness for themselves in signs and wonders. For them, this was no more than a reminder. For us, the passage is historical information, a litany of battles won, a map of how our ancestors settled in the new land. The Torah, in fact, was written for us as well then, yet we must understand it differently in this time. And as for us, the history factor is even more important. In discussing the use of the narrative in Torah, Maimonides writes, every narrative in the law serves a certain purpose in connection with religious teaching, either to establish a principle of faith or to regulate human actions so as to prevent injustice among people. But Maimonides is making a more specific point. What about Torah passages which are not so obviously instructive? The Rambam, remember, says every passage, So as we read in today's portion a list of battles with random peoples we've never heard of before in any other section of Torah, we wrestle to draw purpose from this endless list. As I opened in last week's drash, I'm not sure how many of you heard that, we must recall that we are taught not a single word in Torah is wasted. And so we must not discard even the most arcane or dubious verses. Even in the Rambam's day, many thought of them these words of little use, but such thinking, Maimonides warns, is wrong, because these sections, in fact, do contain deep wisdom, even if we are not seeing it in the moment. The genealogical list in Genesis is evidence of the assertion that humankind, from Adam to Moses, spread quickly over the earth in a relatively short time. The geographical travelogue of the place names evidences of the difficulties of the journey through the wilderness. And this information is most important for us who did not experience those times. An eyewitness sees every detail of an event and understands the place of each point. Those who, like us, who receive a secondhand description cannot see these details. In fact, we might doubt the whole of the incident. We need more convincing and enumerated details to provide the evidence of a true and accurate representation. Without the full picture, we may not realize the importance of each detail. But the Rambam assures us that there is a good reason for each narrative, whether we see it or not. The experience of wandering is felt by us more explicitly when we read of the seemingly endless struggles of our forebears in the desert. Last summer, I took on an assignment in my clinical pastoral education curriculum to create a 4-generation genogram. A genogram is like a family tree, but is so much more. In it, you layer on relationships, tensions, strong bonds, and broken ones. In this kind of work, patterns going back hundreds of years were revealed to me, and I gained a better understanding of who I am and why I am the way I am, based on my ancestral story. Imagine if I could go all the way back to my family's time and witnessing the miracles in the desert. I could see how HaKadosh Baruch Hu weaved himself throughout the branches of my ancient family tree, how God is the central character in every generation. Sometimes the historical reason the Torah mentions all the encounters with the people on the borders of Canaan is simply informational. The Torah tells us that some of those lands were transited peacefully, while others were occasion for battles. The people who were not to be disturbed were those who had received their land from God. Other groups were the descendants of those who had been cursed by God. Thus, knowledge of the history of the inhabitants of an area was important in understanding God's instructions. It also reinforces our appreciation of the purpose and justice in God's actions. Devarim illustrates the importance of history and our understanding of and belief in God's actions. With its coverage of past, present, and future, Devarim also reminds us that God's actions are timeless. The Rambam explained that those who would doubt God's miraculous power might be convinced by the detailed genealogy of the family of Adam. Those today who would doubt God's continuing benefits toward the people of Israel might question the story of my great-grandfather Yehuda, a poor Jewish merchant in 19th century Slovakia, whose descendants escaped the troubles of the early 20th century Europe and became free, practicing Jews in America. But a seemingly insignificant list provides the proof. For the daughter of Yehuda was Ethel, and the daughter of Ethel was Judy, and the daughter of Judy is Cantor Sharon, who wishes you a Shabbat Shalom. Speaking of generations and honoring Jewish traditions, I am so happy to be a part of the blessing of this newest generation of our global Jewish community. I call on Mom and Dad, Claire and Jonathan, and their daughters, Lena and Naomi, as they receive a blessing and announce their Hebrew names. So Jonathan and Claire are going to tell you a little bit about them right now. Come up to the mic.
Hey everyone, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming out on a Friday evening to be a part of this moment in our family's life. I'm going to cry. That's going to happen. We're trying to be short. I just want to say, as I look out of the faces of the people who chose to spend their time here today, I see some of our oldest friends in Charlottesville, some new friends, some of our deepest friends, and I'm just so grateful for each of you who chose to be here with us today for this moment with our family, and this Jewish community that has welcomed us with open arms since we moved to Charlottesville in 2018. And our hope for our daughters is that they both become a part of this community and give to it and welcome other people the way that we've been welcomed. So thank you all for coming. So this is Naomi Haya Peyton Katz. She's, how old are you, Naomi?
I'm 3.
She's 3, and this is her naming ceremony because when she was born, it was high COVID, and no one was going anywhere. And we spent most of her infancy inside our homes. So we get to celebrate her name. So her name, the first name that we gave her, Naomi, actually comes from my side of the family. It is the name of my great-grandmother, who is named Ruth Naomi. She was a journalist in Kansas in the beginning of the 20th century. That's very apropos because my husband is a journalist. And it was clear. I didn't realize that was going to be just the thing I couldn't escape or would want to, but I come by it honestly. And also, she died in 1919 in the flu pandemic. And then as we were welcoming a new child in 2020, there was a certain resonance of honoring, the experiences of those who had come before and giving them new life. Also, it is the most important story of conversion, which is also our experience in our family. And so it just all the threads of our life, both past and present, came together, and we got to welcome this beautiful person. And then Haya, her middle name, is the name of Jonathan's grandmother, Helen. It was her Hebrew name, and it means life. And Naomi in Hebrew means beautiful. So Naomi Haya means beautiful life, and that is what we hope for her. So Naomi, I would like to introduce you to the Jewish community of Charlottesville. This is going to be your family, and we hope that you then get to be a part of other people's families and welcome them. Thank you.
That's right. Give it up for Naomi Chaya, yes. Yes. I shouldn't be too loud. Jonathan, father of these girls. And thank you all for coming. I also want to give a special shout out to the California contingent, my sister and her wife Donna, and my parents who have, previously they would have come from far away, but now they just live in Belvedere with us. So. Not with us, but
Essentially.
Kind of with us. So this is, Lena is her English name. Lena Antone. The Antone is a family name on Claire's side. It was her father who passed away in 2002. His name was Michael Antone, Tony Peyton. Claire's middle name is also Antone. I know that's not the Hebrew part, but we thought we would. We're definitely honoring Tony, Oliver Shalom. Not that he would have known what Oliver Shalom meant. Lena, her first name, she is named for my great-grandmother, Lena Katz, who was born Leah Kleinman in what was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire and is now Western Ukraine. And her Hebrew name, which will also be Lena's Hebrew name in a moment, is Leah. Lena was the matriarch of the Katz family in America, specifically the Bronx. She was a renowned hostess. The legend, and it is a legend, of her annual Passover Seders grows every year, in which more and more people are fit into a tinier and tinier Bronx apartment with a tinier and tinier kitchen. The reason we like the name, I mean, look, all parents pick names because it's just like, we like the name. It's a good name. But it also felt extremely apropos for a couple of different reasons. One, because it goes back to a ancestral and very important connection in my family. Also because Lena's story was a story of someone who, I forget what age she was. She was a teenager. I think I looked this up at some point. But she escaped persecution in what is now Western Ukraine, so a place that is in the news, and embarked on a perilous journey across the ocean to immigrate to the United States. And some of the dearest people in our lives are attempting, and in some cases actually, even since actually Lena was born, some of them actually now successfully arrived in the United States, escaping persecution, violence, poverty, the ravages of empire. And what's that? We're specifically talking about people who are escaping Haiti, where things are very, very bad right now. And some other friends of ours as well. And so that was a way for us to nod to those things. The other thing that we did not plan on was that Lena's, as I said, her birth name in Yiddish and also her Hebrew name was Leah. So this is now Leah Bat Yonatan Cohen Bebatya. And this Leah, completely shocking to us, was born on May 4th, which for those of you who are unaware is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, that's what it's called. And it was a long and arduous, but ultimately extremely successful birthing process. And so she arrived with the strength and courage and fortitude befitting a princess of the Rebel Alliance. Yeah, and so Naomi will also be Naomi Chaya, Bat Yonatan HaKohen, Bebatya, Naomi for short. I'm so glad that Naomi is finally getting a name after 3 years.
Calling her Hey You.
Yeah, hey you, come downstairs. That's all right. Thank you guys for being here very much.
Again, thank you guys all so much.
You got it.
I'm going to make this super short, and then you can say the priestly blessing for your family. So, Rucha Haba'ah Hashem Adonai, welcome to you in the name of our Creator. Mishaberach Avotenu V'imotenu, may the one who has blessed our ancestors bless this growing family. Now, in the presence of loved ones, we give you the name Leah, Leah Bat Yonatan HaKohen Batya, the Naomi Chaya Bat Yonatan HaKohen Batya. Let these names become honored and respected for wisdom and good deeds. Let you commit yourselves to the unfolding of your promise. May you walk the path of goodness, beauty, and truth. Do justly, love mercy, and be humble before the mystery of life and the grandeur of the universe into which you have been born. May God's blessing rest on you both.
Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'eheyanu v'kiyamanu v'hegiyanu la'zman hazeh. Shkaya.
Thank you, everyone.
And I know that we are ready to say our blessing, our Kiddush, and congratulate this lovely family. Yes, who thank you for owning or sponsoring the ONEG tonight.
Specifically, my parents.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so we will now begin our closing prayers with the Aleinu on page 586. Please rise. This is a few pages long. We're just going to go right from one page to the next. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kohen, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shehu noteh shamayim ve'oseh haaretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim imahal, u'shchinatu zo, v'gothei meromim, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakatu b'torato, v'data hayom v'hashemota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'al shamayim imahal, v'haaretz mitachat ein od. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may be seated. Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish, can be found on page 598. In our congregation this week, we are remembering the art sites of Alan B. Dole, Elwin Berger, Dorothy Cherkasky, Bruce Crystal, Bernard Grandis, Faye Kaufman, Rose Levsky, Melvin Milson, Theodore White, Carol Whitman, Morris Litt, Ida Shapiro, and we are in Shiva or Shlashim for Richard Levine and Alfred Rim. Any other names we wish to add at this point for Mourner's Kaddish? Those who are in mourning, those who wish to join in support of them, please rise for Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitzkadal v'yitzkadash me rabba, v'yamad divrach chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon u'chayeh d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam Omei Almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitzba'ar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shmei d'kudisha b'richu, le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'miram v'yalma, v'imru, amen. Yehi shalom arava min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imrama, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. You may be seated. Announcements. There are not many of them. Tomorrow morning there will be a traditional egalitarian minyan for Shabbat morning service, and you'll be singing Haftarah, right? Well, that's worth coming right there. And then Wednesday we read the Book of Lamentations and study Torah for Tisha B'Av. That starts on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., July 26th. So please, if you are in town, we love to have as many people at this service to just give it that extra weight, that extra meaning. Any other announcements? Okay. So let us move on to our final closing song, Don Olam, on page 625. Little upbeat tune. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nira Le'en Nasa V'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Tichot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hover Ve'hu Yeh Ve'tifara Ve'hu Yeh Ve'tifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'yen Sheni Lecham Shilo Lechbira Ve'li Reshit Ve'li Tachlit Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'cham Yisra Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'cham Yisra Ve'hu Eli Ve'chai Go'ali Ve'tzur Chevli Ve'yetzara Ve'hu Nisi U'manosli Menat Hosi Me'yom Ekra Menat Hosi Me'yom Ekra Be'yado Avki Ruchi Ve'eti Shan Ve'yahira Ve'im Ruchi Geviyati Adonai Li Ve'lo Hira Adonai Li Ve'lo Hira. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for our Simcha and our Kiddush and Motzi in Omansky Hall. You can put your books on the shelves on the way out, and we'll meet you in there. Grab a little kos of wine or juice.